Today we'll be retouching another creative retouching, showing you guys how to take a normal image and create a really nice high key look out of that whole approach. Today's image is also sponsored by Jasmine Kuhn, a very talented photographer from the States. Her website is in the description down below, and yeah, jasminekuhn.com, have a look at her work. Alright, great, so let's get started with our tutorial. Okay, so I started importing the image right into Photoshop, and we just have it as a normal background layer here, and it's still locked. So I'm going to double click onto my layer, and I'm just going to rename it to basic, so I know it's the basic layer. Okay, and that is also unlocked now. Okay, so my first step now in terms of retouching this or creating a creative retouch out of this is first of all fixing up stuff and doing my normal retouching on the person itself. So over here on the mouth, I can already see I do want to fix up the teeth a little bit. I do want to fix the lips a little bit, and I will get started with that right away. So first of all, what I'll do is select again my pen tool over here, and also with Z, zoom in a little bit closer so we can nicely see what we're doing here. And with the pen tool, I'm just trying to get a really nice edgy curve around here and just taking out a clean cut around her mouth. Okay, a little bit over here, and I'm going to go all the way over to the side and do the same over here as well. A pretty nice round shape just to get the lips into a really nice shape. Okay, turn that, and we already have a new path now. Now on that path, I'm also going to press right click and say make selection. I'm going to say OK, zero feathering, and we are still on our basic layer. So I don't want to do this on my basic layer. I want to retouch now on a new layer. So what we're going to do is just add another new layer from down here. We can double tap on that and call that retouch. Okay, so on that retouching layer now, I want to clean up the lips a little bit. We're going to use our clone stamp for that on the left hand side here. Hold Alt, and we're just going to sample from very close in, just a little bit over here. Okay, and we're going to go to here, sample again from this area, and also over here. Sample all the way through, a little bit over here. Okay, watch out for the edges there. I'm going to also take my healing brush tool for that, and just soften this up a little bit. Smudge this a little bit in here. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, so that's all good. I'm still happy here at the top. I will still add this a little bit. So what I'm going to do now, obviously I'm working in this selection. So what I want to do is basically invert my selection. So I'm going to go press marking tool over here, right click onto my selection and say select inverse. So basically swapping around my selection. So now I can work on the lips here, and we can also touch up this a little bit. Also, if your healing brush or if your cloning tool does not really work on your single layer here, that is because you will need to go up here to the all layers function. Yours is most probably set on current layers, set that to all layers, and then your healing and cloning brush should work on all layers. Okay, back to the lips here. First of all, at the top, I'm going to press Alt again, very close by, just sample a little bit this in here. Hold Alt again and sample that in a little bit. Okay, a little bit too much. I do want to actually get this reflection here. So a little bit from here. That looks a bit better. Okay, and we're going to just clean up the edge over here. And on the left hand side, that all looks good. Okay, press Command D, get out of that selection, and we have a nice round hard edge around the lips as well, which do look still a bit rugged. But what we're going to do now, first of all, I'm also going to fix this here at the bottom, but actually I'm pretty happy with the bottom part. Maybe a little bit here on the left hand side. So what I'll do is then again just do with my path tool a nice shape around here, just trying to get a nice even shape over here. Okay, close that path, make a selection out of that path with right click, zero feathering again on our retouching layer, and now with the clone tool just going to fill that up again. So with one small stripe over here, just filling that up, press Command D, and we have a nice round side as well. Now here at the top, it doesn't look too good. Let's also press our eraser, and I'm just going to erase a little bit away here. Okay, so we don't have that hard edge. Then I'm going to take my healing brush tool again, sample an area very close by, and just very carefully heal over this area. Okay, and the clone stamp tool again, swapping the tools and just trying to work with both tools. Okay, like that, that's fine. And now what I'm going to do is go over here and take my blur tool, and at around the 80% strength, I'm going to just blur the edges of these lips here that we just created. So just a little bit over here, just to break this hard edge. So everything just works in a little bit better and gets a little bit of a smoother edge. Okay, a little bit more here. And now obviously on this side as well. So I'm going to go over this with a few strokes. This is actually not too good over here. It still looks very like an edge over here. So we still have to take care of that after on our next step now. So okay, just smudging this a little bit more so that just blends in a little bit better. Okay, press Z and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay, and let's see our before and after. So that's before and after, before and after. So just cleaning that up a little bit. Then we're also going to go in here and clean up that teeth a little bit. Again with the clone stamp tool, just on the tongue, sample a little bit with Alt. And also going to just sample the teeth in a little bit and going to make a little bit of an edge in here so it does look more natural. Might be that that is a bit too big. Okay, but that's also why we're working on a separate layer. If we need to go back, we can always switch back here onto our layer or erase something. So it works pretty good. Okay, let's also clean up the tongue a little bit. So that's all I'm going to do over here. That looks all good. Okay, so next step that I'm going to do is zoom out a little bit again. Let's have a look quickly, before and after. So that's the before and after. So next step that I'm going to do is make a master shortcut again. I'm going to press Command, Alt, Shift and E all together and create a new layer and merge all these layers together to one. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit and we're going to go over to our liquefying tool. So filter and we're going to go to liquefy over here. So the liquefier is opened and I'm going to zoom over a little bit over to the mouth. And first of all, what I want to do now is just structure the mouth a little bit. But before I start even with my normal brush, structure everything in, I want to lock down some areas. So I'm going to go over here to the left hand side and get the freeze mask tool and just inside paint a little bit which areas I don't want to be affected. So just the teeth and also a little bit from the lips here. So all these areas that we're masking out now at the moment won't be affected by our liquefying tool once we move things. Okay, so we've got that selection now. Maybe make our brush a little bit smaller here on the right hand side, our brush size. Take that down a little bit so we can work a little bit finer. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger and also go again back to our warp tool over here. And now we're going to warp in the lips a little bit nicer and just give this a very even and similar look on both sides. So let's make this a little bit bigger here. Okay, so my trick normally is I make my brush a little bit bigger and then not really work with the center. I'm more working with the outside of the circle. So as you guys can see now over here, I'm going to just tap my way through, and I'm also not going to brush with a long stroke, just tap your way through. Okay, so first of all, I do want to tackle the small bump over here. My brush size is a little bit big for that, so I'm going to just tap once in here and another one that looks a little bit more round and even. Okay, the same over here as well. And then I'm going to make my brush side a little bit bigger. Do the same over here with the lips, trying to get a nice even shape over here. And just like I said before, tap. Okay, and down here I want to push in the lip a little bit, just to get a nice round even shape in here. Okay, and that might take 1 or 2 tries, so if you mess up. And as you guys can also see in the inside here, we're not affecting any of that masked area. If you guys do mess up, you can also just go over here and say restore all, and that will all change back, or say cancel and go back into liquefying tool. Okay, I'm pretty happy now with this effect so far, so I'm going to hit OK now, and that will be overtaken into Photoshop. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit and see our before and after. So that's our before and after, before and after. So I don't want to manipulate her face too much, just rather giving her a little bit better lip structure, just to let the image pop a little bit better and a little bit better look. Okay, so then we're also going to move that into the center again, and I'm going to take the retouch layer, and we can also rename the layer 1 here to liquefy. Okay, and we're going to take retouch and liquefy, those 2 layers, hold command, select both, press command G and put that into a new layer under retouch. Okay, next step that I want to do is just brighten the background a little bit. Obviously we're going now for a little bit of a high key and really white look. So next step I'm going to do is an adjustment layer and also play a little bit with levels. Take my mid-tone sliders over here and push them a little bit up. Let's see, that darkens everything a little bit, so let's push them to the left, so we're brightening everything a little bit. I don't want to over brighten her face. We're going to work on her face individually and also on the background individually. So over here we're just brightening the background a little bit, so take the mid-tone sliders a little bit more. Okay, and I do want to invert this adjustment layer, so pressing Command E. For Windows users, Control E. Okay, and we're going to change that to a black mask. Okay, so with brush now and a white foreground color, I'm going to press B for my brush and swap with X to white foreground color over here. My opacity should be at 100%. Okay, and I'm also going to have a very soft brush, so Control Alt together, feather that completely, that brush. Okay, 0 hardness, and now I'm just going to brush a little bit over here, over the background, a little bit over the hair, not too much, and trying to get a really white highlighted background. Also over the left hand side a little bit and down here. Okay, so you guys can already see here on the mask what has happened, and that just brightens the background a little bit. Okay, next step that I want to do is brighten her face a little bit and get also a nicer color push onto her skin. So what I'll do is go back to adjustments and we're going to go to black and white filter, and we're going to go in our presets here to maximum white. So that has changed everything to pure white now. So we're not going to use it on a normal layer. We're going to use it as a soft light layer. So over here, soft light, and we're also going to turn that down to around 60-70%. Let's have a look, maybe 60%. That looks a little bit better. Okay, and we're just going to apply this now onto her skin. So again, Command E and invert that to a black mask. Take your brush again, and we're just going to paint with a very soft brush over her face, over the fingers, and over the whole skin over here. Okay, a little bit more. Just going to do it over here. Okay, open your brush a little bit. I'm working with a Vacuum Continuous 4 board, so I'm able via my board to change my brush size very quickly. If you don't have that, please go here up to the left hand side and change it here in the brush presets. Okay, so I've painted out with white pretty much all I wanted. I can also paint a little bit on the teeth to just brighten that a bit, a little bit on the highlights here. But don't worry, we're still going to work that in with our dodge and burn layer. Okay, so that's all good. We are pretty much now on a whiter skin, and we brightened a little bit the skin a little bit. Now we can do some corrections. So change your change your foreground colors again back to black. So you just paint a little bit here on the hair and also on the top. A little bit on the sides here, go down, and that's about it. Okay, changing again with X and just the one small stroke to get even brightness over here. Okay, so that's basically now just our skin, so brightening everything up a bit. Okay, so take the two layers and press Command G again, put that together in a new group, and we just can call this skin. Take the retouching and the skin layer again with Command G. For the Windows users, Control G. And we're going to just write here again, retouch, keep our file nice and sorted. Okay, so that's our process so far from the beginning to where we are now. Okay, then I also do want to work a little bit on the eyes, but we do not have too much detail here in the eyes, just a big reflection from the key light. So I don't guess that we'll get so much out of the eyes. So let's give it a try. Under selective color again, I'm going to select the neutrals under the color tones. And we're going to go a little bit down here and work in our blacks. We're just going to turn this up a little bit just to brighten this everything a little bit. So let's see, we're just destroying and adding a bit more key light here. So I don't want to add it too much. Okay, say around -11. And I'm also going to invert this again, Command E, and invert that to a hidden mask. Over here, select my brush again with white foreground color and 100% opacity. I'm just going to brush over the eyes, just to get a little bit of that pop and brightness in there. So let's see our before and after. So it doesn't really bring the eyes out a lot more. There's not a lot of detail in here. So that would normally be my technique for brighten up eyes a little bit. Obviously also duplicating that layer with Command J, and then also over here taking just the blacks down a little bit again to 0. We still have our mask just on the eyes. So -0, or let's just type in 0, okay. And then we could work a little bit on our cyan, magentas and yellows just to push those colors a little bit in her eyes. So as you guys can see now, if I'm turning the cyan up completely, we'll give her complete red eyes, which we don't want. But in cases where you don't have, where you do actually have details in the eyes, you could use this duplicated selective color technique just to brighten the eyes a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go with a little bit more magenta, just putting a little bit of red in there. Okay, take these two layers. Now today this technique didn't work so great, but let's take these two layers here, Command G, put that together in a group, call that eyes. So today it didn't work too much, but here's our before and after, just another bit of a push in her eyes. Okay, next step we're going to do is add a little bit more color here onto the nails and also maybe on the mouth. Not too sure, actually the mouth is red enough, so let's just add a little bit of color onto the nails and onto the paint which is dripping down here from the lips. Okay, so we're going to go back to layer, we're going to go to new fill layer, solid color, and I'm going to pick yes, a new color fill. We can just write here color, that could be the name of the new layer. And color from the layers, that's fine. Mode should be set to color, so the blending option here, and opacity 100. I'm going to say OK now, and obviously it's white, so everything turns out white. At the moment I'm just going to keep it to white, say OK. I'm also going to blend off the layer now in order to select the color here from the actual color from the image. So I'm going to double tap here onto my layer, so we get into the color picker mode again. And then I'm going to have, with my eyedropper tool here, going to sample just a very pinkish color from the nails already. So this color looks a little bit dull over here. I would like to actually push this a little bit. So I'm going to take it to a little bit in here and just give it a nice pinkish color. Okay, and we already have a new pink color. That is obviously with the color blending option. So on our mask now, I'm also going to switch this on. We still have to invert that mask again, Command E. Invert that, and with our brush again with white foreground color, I'm just going to paint that really roughly onto the nails here. Let me also zoom in a little bit closer for that. So with the brush just painting on here, I'm going to just really roughly paint over everything now at the moment. So we're going to clean up that in a moment. Okay, and also over the lips here, and do try to go a little bit around the highlights here. So you don't want the highlights to also be pink, so you do want to keep them white. Okay, around the teeth, you can also see my brush is a little bit feathered. You can also do that with a hard edge brush. Okay, a little bit more of the color, and down here as well. Okay, in here. Okay, and we're going to do the same effect here on the right hand side of the nails here. A little bit more. And over here as well. Okay, and now we still have to fix up all these little dots here. So one step that we can do is just switch our foreground colors back to black with 100% opacity, make a nice brush size, and just paint out these little dots here just to get that silver reflection again back onto the dots. So I'm just tapping all my way through here and just trying to get that a little bit off the color. And again, some really nice beauty stuff here. Okay, a little bit more here. And some of them are actually a little bit gold. So let's see that. Okay, and over here, over there, a few more taps. Okay, then also do want to check that my highlights here are not too much covered with that paint. Maybe a little bit. Okay, so switch my foreground colors back again to white, and I'm going to paint now with just a 10% opacity just to bleed this in a little bit better here. So paint over the highlights. That will just help it a bit. Okay, so that's basically just the new fill color layer. So as you guys can see now, that's the before, looking very desaturated and dull, and that's the after, just a little bit of a pop again. If you think the color is still too bright and too pinkish, you can always double tap here back onto the color picker and now decide which color you actually want to take. So if we want to do blue, you can obviously switch over to blue, which also looks kind of nice, so you can work with blue. I will actually go back, cancel this, go back to the original color and just darken this a little bit. So maybe somewhere over here. and say OK, and that is just another push here on the colors. Okay, Command G, put that into a new group. I'm just going to write here color fill. Okay, and next step that we're going to do, we're just going to minimize the layer here. We're also going to do now a little bit of dodge and burning again. So I'm going to go down here, create a new layer, and select my marking tool, press Command A, select the complete sheet or my canvas here, press M, or we're still already in the marking tool. I'm going to press right click and say fill with 50% gray. OK. Command D, get out of that selection, and we're going to change our blending options back to overlay so we can now dodge and burn a little bit on this image. Okay, so I can also rename this layer to dodge and burn again, D and B, normal setup for my dodge and burn stuff. And I'm going to select my brush again, press Command or Control Alt together. Again, left and right makes your brush a little bit bigger. Up and down, we're going to change the hardness complete to 0, and also my brush size. That's all depending now on my dodging and burning. One step that is very important is do take the opacity down to 0, just 0.7%, because you don't want the dodge and burn effect to be too hard. Okay, so with white you're lightening, and with dark you're actually burning. So let's start now a little bit closer here. First step that I'm going to do is just with my foreground color black, just burning a little bit. So press B again, and we're going to just burn a little bit the eyelashes here on top, just adding a bit more contrast in here, also around the pupils, a little bit more, and over here on the left hand side as well, sorry, right hand side, and just a little bit. Now we're also trying to just cover the shadows a little bit over here, just a bit, not too much. And as you guys can see, I'm also using just small strokes to do this, like tap, tap, tap my way through again. I'm obviously working with the Vacuum Continuous 4 tablet and with the pen, so it's a little bit easier than doing it with the mouse. And also I can change my brush sizes really quickly. So over here, just the edges, try to darken them a little bit, get a little bit of more dimension and 3D look, or a bit more dynamic in here into your image. Okay, a little bit more around here, around the lips. Okay, let's move down a little bit, and I'm also going to go over here to these shadows, a little bit, tap tap over here, darken that a bit. Okay, let's go up to the top, under the nose a little bit. Okay, and in here, giving the nose shadow a bit, onto the side here over the ears, and that's about it. Almost all that I'm going to do just for burning. Let's quickly have a look here, before and after. So that's the before and after, before and after. Obviously this also increases a little bit of that saturation and everything gets a little bit more orange, but we're going to take that out after this. Okay, switch back to white foreground color. So now we're going to dodge a little bit with the brush again. First, what we want to do is just push all of these highlights here on the color here, on the lips a little bit, especially on the highlights. I'm going to work a little bit on the teeth, just brightening them up a little bit, and also the highlights here on top of the lips. Okay, so that's nice and shiny, and also works a little bit better with the skin. A little bit on the nails, not too much. Just giving that a bit of a touch. Okay, in the eyes a little bit, maybe onto the top of the nose here, because we already do have such a bright skin. We don't need to really dodge too much on the skin. I just want to add a little bit more of a push to all of the highlights. Okay, a little bit on the fingers here. Okay, let me turn that off and show you guys quickly what I've done so far. So this is basically my dodge and burning process, just darkening and burning a little bit the shadows and also around the lips and all the contours, and then obviously highlighting on the highlights on top of the image. Yeah, okay, let's switch everything on again. That is again the before and after, before and after. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. So everything is quite orangey now. So the next step that I'm also going to do is just add a little bit of a hue and saturation color adjustment on top of this whole image. So first of all, under the masters, I'm just going to take the masters out a little bit. So desaturate my image just a little bit to -10, and also going to work a little bit in the reds. And now also take the reds just out a little bit more to -7, so we don't have it that orangey our image. We're trying to go for more highlighted, very whitish look. Okay, so I'm going to go back to adjustments, and we're going to use another levels adjustment layer just to give this image a little bit of a pop and brighten it a little bit more. So I'm going to take my highlight sliders over here on the right and just push them a little bit to brighten the overall image, and my midtone state is to darken again the face a little bit because we don't want it to have no contrast at all. Okay, so over here, let's also go back to our hue and saturation layer, take our reds again, and we also do have a lot of yellows in here. Let's try the yellow slider. Okay, a little bit over to the left, desaturating a little bit of that yellow to -11. Let's also try our master slider again. If we take that all the way, okay, now we're losing a lot of color, so move that again back to -11 as well. Okay, so that's basically tuning it a little bit. Press Command G, select all the layers, and we're just going to write over here pop. So we're just adding another little pop to the image. As you guys can see now, before and after, contrast, and obviously dodge and burn, and a pop, so we can actually write pop and dodge and burn. Okay, so over here, before and after, before and after, before and after. If that whole dodge and burning technique is still a little bit too strong, you can actually always go back to your dodge and burn layer and also take the opacity down to just say 80%, 90%. So that works in a little bit better. Obviously, you can also use a different blending option to soft light, so you're not working in that hard environment where you have everything on the overlay mode. Okay, let's go back. One last step that I still want to do now is press Command Alt Shift E, master shortcut. We're merging all the layers again together, and I do want to sample some areas here from the hair. So now I do want to straighten up the hair a little bit. What I'm going to do is just with the marking tool, select a small area from here to get all these nice hairs. Okay, on this new layer here, I'm going to press Command C now to copy this area and Command V to duplicate that area. I'm going to delete my old area here again, my merged layer, I don't need that, and I can actually just write here, so I know that's my new hair layer, and I can move that around. So over here I obviously do have a lot from the white pixels and a lot from the black pixels from that image. So what I'm going to do now is take my blending option and move that to lighten. So all the black parts, all the black pixels disappear, and I'm just left with the lighted, with the white pixels. So now I can just move that over here and slowly with the cursors left and right, move that a little bit in and move that over the existing hair already, and don't need to worry too much about adding too much stuff or cloning. I can just very quickly add in the hair. Okay, Command J, duplicate that layer. I'm going to take it a little bit over here and also move it again with my cursors up and down. Okay, add a little bit more in here. Command J again, duplicate again that layer, and we're going to add it everywhere in now. So let's move it a little bit left and right. Okay, and that already works a little bit better. It's not the perfect comp yet. We can duplicate that again, so you can create a few more and blend them or bleed them each over each other. Okay, like that. Now we do have a few new layers here. I'm going to take all of these new hair copies here and press right click, select all of them and say merge layers. So we merge everything to one new layer. Oh, but what happened now? Now we already have again the black pixels in here. Very simple. If you merge the layers together, all your blending option will change back to normal. So just go and set that back to lighten. Okay, and now last step, we're going to clean that up. So I'm going to make a mask on this, and just with a black foreground color, and press B again, your brush. We're just going to paint out, obviously on 100% opacity. We're just going to brush out all these areas here that we don't want. Okay, so in here a little bit, clean that up a little bit. Okay, and also on the top, soften your brush completely. Again, zero hardness. If you have a hard edge here at the top, because obviously you copied it with a very hard edge from the marking tool, just brush that out a little bit and soften that in a little bit. Okay, so that looks a little bit better, a little bit more straighter. I didn't take too much time now to do this, so take a little bit more time and also fix it here on the left hand side. But that's one way of doing it. Otherwise you can also use a new layer with again the same color like the hair over here, and a brush, hard, completely hard the brush, and with around 3 to 2 pixels, and just paint all these hairs in. I did a complete retouching about that in a very long time ago on some hair retouching stuff. Okay, so I've got my hair now. I can still press Command G again and make a new layer, call this hair. Say OK. If you still messed up, or if it's still a little bit too dark over here, create another dodge and burn layer and just dodge these hairs in a little bit so you brighten everything up a little bit. Okay, so that's my hair now. Next step that I'm going to do is press Command Alt Shift E, create a master shortcut again, and that's now my final layer, which I'm now still going to try to, under adjustments, add a little bit of again with a selective color, try if I can get a nicer color in here. Let me just zoom out a little bit on this and see if my color push, if I'm taking the cyans a little bit over to +1, and also my magentas, not really happy playing with that. Yellows left and right, I can desaturate them a little bit, so we're going a little bit whiter, and also more magentas come through again, so not doing that too much, a little bit, so to -8, -9, and my blacks I can obviously move that left and right, add a little bit more contrast, and a little bit of a push again. Okay, so that's one stage that I'm still going to do, get a little bit of the yellows out, more magentas, and more of a magenta touch in my shadows, and a little bit of a push. Okay, next step that I still want to do is take this new layer, or the final layer, into my filter called Nix Software. So I'm going to press Command Alt Shift E, create a new solid merged layer with everything. I'm going to go back to Filter, Nix Software, Color FX Pro 4. And I do know a nice technique in Color FX Pro 4 which we can add on top of this just to get a really nice highlighted look. Okay, so over here under cross balance, let's have a look where that is. Cross balance over here, we do have a filter called Tungsten Daylight, Tungsten Daylight 2 or Daylight 1. Daylight 1 looks really nice, but it's just a little bit a touch too strong for me, so I can still take my opacity down here to around 50 to 60%, so that's in the plugin directly. Okay, like that. It's super white now. I can say okay, that will be overtaken into Photoshop now, and bam, we have a super white image now, super bright as well. As you guys can see, there's another pop again onto the lady. So if you don't want to overtake it as strong as it is now, you can always obviously take the opacity down again to around 50%. So now that's almost my final image. As you guys can see, there's still a little bit of detail in the skin. It's not completely white. We still have a little bit of yellows and red in here, showing a little bit of a color tone, not completely white. And also the background and the hair is pretty white, pretty nice. If you do want to add a little bit more contrast now, try another dodge and burn technique where you just add a little bit of the darks in here and burn the shadows a little bit. That will just add another contrasty look to it. Okay, I'm going to take layer 1, selective color and final, press Command G again, right here the look again, and obviously my color process here on the top, I can still add that also to the bottom. That's all under our look. We can press Command Alt Shift E, and we have a complete new layer, and that is now my new final layer. Okay, I'm going to write here final. Okay, and let's quickly have a look again from before to after. So that's basically our before where we started out, and this is our after. So a little bit more contrast, a little bit more white. I think the colors are a little bit more better and more concentrated onto the girl.